Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this mini lesson, you're going to be learning a syncopated speed picking etude. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's break it in half. Let's talk about syncopation, and then we'll come back and talk about speed picking. So what does syncopation actually mean? Well, in a nutshell, it means that you're accenting the weak beats in a measure. But what does that actually mean? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at a bar of eighth notes. So very simple, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now our down beats, those are our strong beats. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Our weak beats, those are the ends. That's the end of 1, end of 2, end of 3, and you guessed it, end of 4. Now syncopation accents those hits, those weak beats, those ends. And it actually makes sense when we actually put it onto the instrument. So if you play just the A string, right, it's much easier to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's much easier to do what I did the first time through, hitting on the downbeats 1, 2, 3, 4, than what I did the second time through, accenting or hitting on the ends. So let's talk a little bit about speed picking. Now, if we think back to the performance, we watched AJ play single notes at a very brisk tempo, and he achieved this by using a pick. Now, if you have never used a pick or you have no interest in using a pick, no worries, because Matt is actually going to be teaching this lesson, and he's going to be teaching it using traditional finger picking methods. He's actually going to be showing you guys 2 ways to finger pick this piece so that you can achieve the same speed that AJ did with a pick. So let's take a step back now and let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, Matt's going to be teaching you the entire etude, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for ML014. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Now also on that page will be the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this piece that much easier. So last but not least, there will be backing tracks on that page that you can download. So once you learn how to play the ukulele part, you'll be able to rock out with the band at home. And I'll go ahead and upload 100% speed backing track, 75% speed, and if you can feel the beat at 50%, I'll upload that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this, and then I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hello, my name is Matt Dahlberg, and in today's mini lesson, we're going to be learning syncopated speed picking. Let's go ahead and dive in with melody A. Now to play this, it's actually pretty straightforward. We're only going to be picking one note at a time. So we're going to start by just using our thumb for the first 4 bars of this, and then we're going to introduce another technique. We're going to start here by using 1 finger per fret with our fretting hand, which means our index finger on the first, middle finger on the second, ring finger on the third, and pinky here on the fourth. We're going to use that as much as we can for the first melody sequence. We're going to start by playing just open on the E, and then we're going to play 3 on the E with the ring, 2 on the E with the middle, and then open on the E, finally 2 on the A. A quick tip here is when you're playing lines like this, it's okay to pre-fret things that happen before, because it only matters what the last fret is for what the tone will be. So when I'm playing this 3, I can have this 2 already there because it doesn't impact the tone at all. And that can help expedite the movement as I'm going through, as you can see. So measure 1 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 2, we're going to do the same thing, same 0, same 3, 2, 0, and then instead of going to 2 on the E string, we go to 2 on the C string, there with the middle finger. So measure 2 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the 2 measures together should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into the third measure here, we're going to play the exact same thing we did on measure 1, which sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then going into measure 4, a little bit more tricky. We're going to start by playing the 3rd fret on the E string with our ring finger. We're going to play that 3, and we're going to immediately slide it up to 5 on the E. A quick tip for slides is maintain and even increase ever so slightly the pressure with the finger, and that can help maintain the sustain of the note as it goes up. And then we go back down to 3, moving the ring finger right back down where it was. And then we're going to play 2 on the E with our middle finger, hammer on with our ring finger to the 3rd fret. Make sure you're getting right into that fret wire there and using as much of a tip of the finger as you can to get that good tone. And then we're going to do a pull off, which means that ring finger is going to kind of pluck the string as it goes down. And then we're going to play 2 on the C string, which we're then going to break that little 1 finger per fret because the 2's already here with the middle, and use your index to play there on the 2 of the C. So a pretty tricky measure to start here, but measure 5 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now this sort of concludes the first little part of melody A. So let's go ahead and hear what measures 3 and 4 sound like together. It should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Careful with the slides. It's easy to overshoot a little bit like I did there. That's why I like to actually increase the pressure a little bit so that as I'm getting to where I want to end, the finger's kind of digging into that fret. Both helps the sustain and the tone. But as I mentioned, that's sort of the conclusion of the first little part of melody A, because here we need to introduce a new technique for what we're playing with our playing hand. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. You can use a finger pick, which I don't really use, but if you are using a finger pick, you want to just get comfortable being able to go down and up with the finger pick. If you're like me and a bit of an ukulele purist and just want to use your fingers, not that there's anything wrong with a pick. When you need a pick, use a pick. But to create that same sort of effect, what we're going to do is we're going to use our thumb on the E string here and our middle finger also on the E. See how they're sort of offset a little bit? Thumb's about a 45-degree angle right where the fretboard meets the sound hole, and the middle finger is kind of at the tail end of the sound hole, not right over the thumb like this, but a little bit different. And what I'm going to practice to start here is just plucking with my thumb and then my middle and just kind of alternate back and forth. This technique is surprisingly called alternate picking because we're just alternating with these fingers. The reason this is such a great technique is it helps us build up a lot more speed, which is going to be needed for playing this next line because it's plucked much faster than we can do with our thumb. So get comfortable with that, or using a pick, totally fine as well. Or if you have another technique that you can use to play at this speed, awesome. This is just the technique I like to use. So measure 5 is actually the same as measures 1 and 3, just with a few extra E notes. Instead of it just playing the E and then going 3, 2, 0, 2, it's going to be E, 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 that 0, 0, 0, 0, and then play the 3, 2, 0, 2. So measure 5 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Be careful to not mishit other strings like I did there on the A string. Really easy when you're practicing the alternate picking to accidentally strike wrong strings. That's why it's really important to kind of just practice that alternating again and again. So let me play that again without that mistake. Should sound like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice how I'm just alternating back and forth with each one of those notes. Going on to measure 6. Measure 6 is basically the same as measure 2, just with the 3 extra E notes added. And so it goes E, 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 and then up to the 3, 2, 0, 2. Same exact thing that we did on measure 2, just with those extra notes. In time, it should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, when you're doing the alternate picking, if you're ever ending, like if you do the E string with the thumb, it's okay to then jump the thumb up to the C string because it makes it a little bit easier than if you're trying to jump to the middle. You can also adjust which one you start with to try to set up another finger in a sequential order. So for instance, if I'm playing something where I want to play my E string with my middle finger last, I want to start with whatever finger going back and forth will facilitate that. So just some things to consider when you're playing through this. But measures 5 and 6 now should sound like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going on to measure 7, exactly the same as measure 5, 2 and 3 and 4 and... Pretty straightforward. And then we're going to go on to measure 8 here. We're going to play open on the A string. And we're going to immediately hammer on to 2 on the A with the middle finger here. Again, getting right up into that fret wire. Then we're going to play open on the A. Then we're going to play 2 on the A again with the middle. Do a pull off, so we pluck the string with our middle finger of our fretting hand. We're going to play 3 on the E with the ring, and 2 on the E with the middle finger. Still doing that 1 finger per fret for right now. So measure 8 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and measures 7 and 8 should sound something like this together. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now, so that you can hear all of melody A, let's take a listen to it with AJ playing with the band. You'll hear a 2-bar count in if you want to play along, and we'll be playing it at 75% the original speed. From here we go on to melody B. This starts a lot of the syncopation that this gets its name from. Syncopation means accents on offbeats. So with the count on this, we're going to be playing on a lot of ands and less on numbers. So that's just a fun little thing to create this sort of vibe. To start here on measure 9, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'm going to just use my thumb again. No need for the alternate picking with melody B. I'm going to play the open on the E string, and then I'm going to mute right after I play that. I can do that either with my fretting hand, just touching the strings, or with my playing hand by touching the string after plucking it. So I'm going to do that open E, and then I'm going to play open on the E, 2 on the E. Now this time, I'm not going to use 1 finger per fret. I'm going to move up a little bit. My index finger is going to be what's played here on the 2nd fret of the E string. Then I'm going to play 3 on the E with my middle finger, and then I'm going to mute it, either with the fretting or playing hand, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to play open on the A, and I'm going to immediately mute it, even though we don't really see that till measure 10. So measure 9 should sound like this in time. 3 and 4 and... Going into measure 10, we're going to have muted just at the end of measure 9. Then we're going to play 2 on the A string using our index finger. Mute it with either hand. Then we're going to play 2 again and immediately hammer onto 3 using the same techniques we talked about earlier. Then I'm going to play 2 on the A, taking that middle finger off, and then open on the A. And so measure 10 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And measures 9 and 10, which really give you the sense of this syncopation, should sound something like this when you play it in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going into measure 11, measure 11 is exactly the same as measure 9. So in time, 2 and 3 and 4 and... The only difference with measure 11 and measure 9 is at the end of 9, going into 10, we mute it, And going into here on measure 12, we actually let that note ring. So the way that 9 and 11 are played are effectively exactly the same, but the way that 10 and 12 work make it just a little bit different because we're going to let that open on the A ring starting here on measure 12. Then we're going to play 3 on the E, 2 on the E, and we want to make sure we're using the one finger starting with the index on 2, so that was the middle finger on 3 of the E, and index here on 2 of the E. Then we're going to play 3 on the E, pull off to 2 on the E. Then we're going to play 3 on the C with the middle finger here. A nice little leading tone. So measure 12 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Much better. But let's go ahead and hear what measures 11 and 12 sound like. Again, we get a good sense of the syncopation when we combine these measures. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now from here we go on to measure 13, which measure 13 is exactly the same as measure 9. And what's cool is measure 10, or rather measure 14 is exactly the same as measure 10. And so the two of those together, just like we heard on 9 and 10, should sound something like this. Measures 13 and 14, 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going into measure 15, it starts off exactly the same as measure 11 did. And then going into 16, it's going to be similar to what we played on 12, but quite a bit different. We're going to be playing the 3 on the E in the same way. And then we're going to need to slide up to 7 on the A. The way I like to do this is after I play this 3 on the E with my middle finger, I take my pinky, I place it on the 5th fret of the A string, and I slide all the way up to fret 7 with the pinky. So it kind of goes from 5 to 7. Then after I've done this, I'm going to play 2 on the A. So I just kind of take that pinky off, move my index down to 2. And then I play 3 on the E with the middle, and then 2 on the E with the index. That's kind of why we move the one finger per fret over, is just to kind of set up that little movement. And in time, measure 16 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And measures 15 and 16, to sum up this melody B, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now you can hear all of melody B, so let's take a listen again to AJ and the band. We're going to start at measure 7, so you'll have enough time to jump in. Again, we'll slow down the speed to 75%. Pretty cool, right? Those little stops, you know, what I mean by that is like playing the note and then muting it. You can really do this to flavor it however you want. You can let notes ring, or you can make them all really short. And all that I'm doing there is I'm adjusting when the tension is sort of released to allow those notes to stop vibrating, whether that be with the fretting hand, just lightly touching instead of fretting, or with the playing hand here, touching the string after I play it. But from here, we go on to measure 17, which is pretty cool because measure 17 is back to melody A. And in fact, measures 17 and 18 will look very familiar because measures 17 and 18 are exactly the same as measures 5 and 6, which is kind of neat. It's the same exact part being played. And that's going to sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... So exactly the same as what we played before. And then from here we go on to measures 19 and 20. And measures 19 and 20 are going to be exactly the same as measures 6 and 7 that we played earlier. So in time that's going to sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going from here, we go on to measure 21. And measure 21 is going to look very familiar because measure 21, well, it is. We're going to start by playing that open E string, and then 2 on the E, and then 3 on the E, and then open on the A. And with this particular phrase on 21, I like to move up to be index finger on 2 and middle finger here on 3. So it goes in time something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And then as we go on to measure 22, we're going to go up to 5 on the A string with our pinky, go up to 7 on the A with the pinky, and then go up to 10 on the pinky. So a lot of syncopated upward movement. So 22 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And then the pair of these two, 21 and 22, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And to finish the whole thing, we go to measure 23 and simply play 7, 7, 7 on the C, E, and A, barring across with the index finger. And that's all there is for the end of this. So measure 23 sounds like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now, so that you can hear all of Melody C, let's take a listen yet again to AJ playing with the band. We'll start at measure 15, so you have enough time to jump in, and again, we'll be playing it at 75% speed. There is our syncopated speed picking mini lesson. This is a great example to work on to get a little bit more articulate with your melody notes because it's only one note that you're playing at a time. The ukulele is a polyphonic instrument, which means it plays more than one note at a time. We're used to playing chords in the chord melody style. But sometimes we want to play more monophonically, which means just one note at a time. This is a great exercise to work on that, to really focus in on your tone, your sustain, and your clarity to make sure that you're really getting this melody sounding the way that you want it, adjusting your techniques to make the note sometimes longer versus sometimes shorter. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you all for the next lesson here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
Alright guys, so this mini lesson is a lot of fun because it's really two things in one. You get to work on challenging yourself from a rhythmic standpoint, that's syncopation, and you also get to work on developing your right hand picking technique, aka building speed in your right hand. So there's a lot going on in this piece of music, plus I may be biased because I wrote it, but I think it sounds pretty cool. So guys, I hope you enjoyed learning this tune, and I wanted to give you a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print off, keep for your records, that was available at this link, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for ML014, that's the lesson number for this lesson. Don't forget, on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can literally hit play, watch the tabs scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz, and the backing tracks. So once you have that ukulele part down, you can download the backing tracks and rock out with the band at home. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.